Good morning. This is Norma Cowie here once more for Norma Talks. This Wednesday, I'm going to talk about the importance of integration. Why that is because sometimes when I'm working with people, we're bringing in different systems together. Even though I am working with them as if they're in front of me right here and doing integration work, sometimes it's an importance for them to understand, and I often give them another little exercise, which I will do a little bit later. I work with many different systems, but there are some that we need to have integrated and working really well. First of all, there's the chakra system. Now, I work with a very different chakra system than the majority of the people use, mainly because I was instructed years ago by the people that work with me on creating this, what they called an emerging chakra system. So what we want is all these chakras, all the energy working, all integrated and merging as they move up and down clearly within your body. And it makes such a big difference when those systems are clearly working and integrating. It just seems that very often when I start working with someone, that one chakra is out or it's developed or it's got somebody else's energy in it or something like that. And anything that messes, and it's a huge system that I work with, but if anything is a little misaligned, that upsets your own energy level. That upsets your own energy perception of what's coming in and out. So therefore, it is really important. Now, I'm just going to mention that often I run into people not being aware that you have chakras all three, like you have the main ones, but they're front and back and they're all around you. The energy is all around. You're walking around encased in an energy field. And we want all those working in the energy running up and running down smoothly, going through everything. Many people not aware that they have chakras in their backs. And very often a lot of their back problems is because of that. And so that comes and becomes really, really unsettled. So it's very important for you to be very aware that your chakra system is working well. That's just one of the many systems that I work with. The other one I wanted to refer to is the male-female system. Now, again, I have a slightly different viewpoint on the male-female system than a lot of people. And I work with 4 parts, a male and a female and a masculine and a feminine. And so the male and the female deal with your gender. They need not only to be connected to what we call Father Sky, which is the male and masculine energy, and the Mother Earth, which is the female feminine energy, but also they have to be integrated with themselves. Very often, and I'm just going to give something which we often have fun in the workshops we're doing on male-female stuff. If you take a piece of paper and line it in the middle of your face, and if your face is not equal, then usually it means your male or your female is out of balance from your eyes also. And often you'll meet people whose faces feel a little off. And for me, I know, okay, it's a male-female issue, balancing energy, the energy that you have inside. Now, so we have a male and a masculine. Masculine tends to be more intellectual, more the philosophical. I find the masculine energy often deals with a belief system that they have that this is how life should work. So very often also interfaces with what the intellectual system, which is another whole ball of wax, which I may not get to today. Now, when we have a male and female, which is you do with your gender, quite often what I will do also, besides myself working on rebalancing everything to make sure that it's working, I have people put them in their hands. And we do this in the workshops because they're right there with me, right? You put a male in one hand, a male self in one hand, and a female in the other hand. And we've already connected them to Father Sky and Mother Earth. And then we bring the hands together, and then we bring them inside and grow them up internally to integrate them within the internal system. And that can work very, very effectively without you really being aware too much of anything. It's just to have that integration. Now, also with the masculine and feminine, the feminine really, to me, is a very beautiful aspect of ourselves. It relates to, of course, to the Mother Earth, but it relates to the sensuality and the beauty of the earth. And so consequently, when we balance the masculine and the feminine, sometimes that takes sometimes a little bit, because the masculine really wants to figure out the whys and the wherefores of everything. So we are looking at the philosophical or the spiritual connection in that aspect, in those two. So that integration is, I feel, is one of the probably most important. If it's out, if that integration is not in place, you often wonder why you act or react a certain way. It's very often comes back down to that male-female system. I find a lot of work when I'm doing clearing work for people, and they do numbers of sessions, that very often that male and female system keeps coming up. And one of the things, it took me a while, I was thinking, why is this always? The chakras stay in alignment, and this other big and lots of energy I look at, I call selves, seems to hold, but why does not male, female not hold? And then I realized the error I was making was that I was forgetting to add in the universal love force. Thinking that it's connected to the Mother Earth, which has love in it, and the Father Sky, which has love. Beautiful energies, both of them. Very different, but beautiful and balanced and coming in alignment. I'd forgotten the third component, number 3. We often talk when we're looking at things at 3, for 3 elements, that universal love energy. And once I started adding the universal love energy, the energy was holding better. So that was another thing, having that integration with that universal love energy. Even though I do that at the end with everything, but it's like when it comes to male-female systems, they're so diverse and so, what can I say, struggle with. Some people struggle with that. And so it's like, and bringing that together. And very often what happens, of course, we put something in alignment and then we go along, and then the old habits coming from the thinking process, the subconscious mind will creep back in again. And that can happen too. Then we forget to stay in the alignment of that. So the chakras in the male-female system, very important to keep everything integrated and working and flowing. We want to flow. We want to balance. We want life flowing. Now, the other element I wanted to touch on today is a big topic for me, because this is where I first began, besides the past life work, to really get into being aware of how many what I call frozen emotional children we have inside. I call them children, but reality, they could be something frozen even a week ago. So we also have frozen adults. Now, what do I mean by frozen? In a frozen, we freeze in space and time. Trauma, emotional upset. And those are like the knots the trees have. You know how trees have knots in them and the wood keeps on growing and it has this knot. We have these aspects of ourselves which are frozen in time. And if you talk to them, they will not know they've grown on up. When you go and do a consult inside and you ask them how old they are, they'll say, they could be little, but we'll say 5, 7, 20, 49, whatever. And these are parts of us that are frozen in time. They don't realize that time has gone on. And a large part of the integration work I do is to ensure that those aspects of ourselves understand and come connected with the universal love force and grow up to the present. And it makes a very big difference. Again, in the face, will show the eyes in the face, but it also shows in how you respond to the world, because you're having accessibility to all aspects of who you are, how it all works, how it all comes together. And one of the elements, as I say, when I started looking at, I'd had a situation happen in my life and I'd done quite a bit of inner work at that time. And I went, how has this happened? What is actually going on here? And what I did within 2 days was develop this process of re-looking at the inside of and really talking directly to that part. And it came from a number of concepts that had been given to me by friends that I had known, older friends, because I was still quite young. And one of them was that the whole is made up of many parts. And I had been looking at parts of things, and I had lots of them because I'd had a lot of trauma when I was little. So it seemed like I had all this stuff. And in fact, I'd been kind of accused that I was creating it. And I was going, well, no, it wasn't my intention. But anyway, what I found was when we look at a whole, when we look at a certain time space, that we can fracture and we can become what I call splits. We can become many different aspects. And once I had this concept of bringing everything back together and integrating it in wholeness and into the love and into the light, if you know, whichever word you want to use on that. Once I was aware of that and it all came together, then I found I began to, you might want to call it grow up, mature, become much more aware of my feelings. And even though sometimes we still have these little bits of us running around, and it's like we begin to alter our sense of being because we become whole. We're not all these little bits and pieces dangling around that get, charged. You know, you have a reaction. It's always interesting when I find I have a reaction to something, I see something that I react inside, I'll look and say, well, what's that about? And then explore that. And I spent a lot of years doing that. I'm still not perfect, believe me, by any way. But that's how I've learned is how do I respond to my outside world? Because I wanted to be integrated. I wanted to become whole. I didn't want to be, I'll be good in one part maybe of my life, but not so good in another. I wanted it more balanced. And so we've got these aspects of ourselves. Now, there's another aspect that I look at. I just didn't have this written down, and that is all the different parts. Most of us are aware of a high self and a earth self and a shadow self and the main selves, I call them. I call them the main three. That's me and my three again. But what about the emotions? What about the mental? What about other aspects of ourselves, our psychic aspect? Is it all balanced and integrated with everything else? And so in a way, this is where we begin to see what's beginning to happen. Now, when I first started working on this, let's take the high self for a moment. When I started working on the high self, I had ideas about, people had told me what the high self was. And what I began to find was that it was a part of us that is there to support us in where we're heading and where we're going. And a lot of people's high selves, it seemed, weren't very connected into the love force, so that they sometimes had a lot of put down thought patterns and going on. And I realized very quickly that this was not the high self, that the high self was buried under all this mental stuff going on. And now, I'm fortunate. I just can go in, tune into a person's high self, and it will talk to me and tell me what's going on. They're too much in their head. I can't get through. They won't, and when I do, they won't listen. Things like this. And so, okay, now we know what we got to clear up. What do we got to get out so we can get integration back so a person's listening to their high self. A lot of people don't realize they have an earth self, which connects their body. And again, I've got to the place where I can go in, the earth self will tell me what's happening with them in relation to their body. Probably do with some things that are happening to me. It's probably time to go back and have another talk to my own earth self, find out what's going on. And then there's the shadow self, which I find is totally being misrepresented, because on the whole, it's there to bring you love, to bring you support, to bring you an awareness that you are supported. But unfortunately, humans don't have a lot of stuff we don't want to deal with. Whether we feel guilty, whether we feel regret, whether we feel embarrassed, when we feel all those other kind of feelings we don't want to deal with, we'll throw them behind us, and the shadow self becomes like a lint collector. Many times I come to the shadow self when I'm first working with a person, and it's like scraping off inches of black stuff, all the old stuff you don't want to deal with. So how can you feel love and support on that back side of you? How can you feel that it's always there when you've put a whole bunch of unresolved feelings clear? I'm big on clearing stuff. So how uncleared guilt, regret, all those things. How That's why we don't always feel like we're supported. It was built in so that we would feel supported in life. No matter what's happening, no matter what is going on, that energy is there to support you, to love you, to care about you, so that you have that. Now, so the whole key for today came out of actually a session that I had, and it got me thinking again. The importance of integration, not just with separate systems, not just the chakras, not just the male, female, not just the inner frozen children aspects of ourselves, not from all these different parts of us that work, but for all of us. And that's the integration I actually do at the end of any session. I'm going to tell you my secret, because that's what it is. It's not really a secret. It was something I was given. And it's very simple. You just discover what your favorite color is. And then I ask my clients, give me 3 feeling words as to how that color feels. And they will give me 3 words. And then I'll say, is it comfortable? Sometimes they say no. And I'll say, well, okay, what color do you want to add to this? I would like to add rather than change, but sometimes they want to change. So that's okay too. So comfortable, does it accept you? See, the first level is to be able to find that it accepts. And then can you feel the love in the color? Every color has a love force in it because we're all connected. We're all one with just love. And so knowing that, and so we bring that, they bring in the love force, and then they can bring it into their bodies. Because what I found, many people keep the love outside because we were raised, we go above and ask for whatever. And I always knew as soon as I touched the love force, it had to be inside me. And so it's like bringing it in and connecting, because I can be very much in my head, thinking and figuring rather than feeling. So they'll get the person just feeling the love force moving through their body, and then looking for the blockages they have there. And then we can remove those and clear them and become integrated in that moment. But what happens, because most of us aren't little and young, so where, had life experiences, we experience that in the moment, but then that's why I always recommend people have at least 3 sessions with me, not just 1, because we want to reinforce that. We want to enforce that integration. We want to enforce that lovingness through. And it takes a while sometimes to get the system used to that, especially if you have no philosophical concept or awareness of this loving energy that exists. And so the importance of you integrating, and you can do that for these different aspects of you just by putting them in your hands, getting them. Oh, I forgot one point. Trust is that you've got to make sure they're balanced in your hands. So if you've got a male self, say, and a female self, what's heavy? How does that work? So do you take something away from one hand to make it equal, or do you add something to the other hand until these hands are equal? And then you bring them together. How come I forgot that? But that's what I do. And then we bring that in. So it's like, always think about this. When you're having a reaction, when you're having, am I working with my integration? Am I integrating all my systems? Is this working really, really well? And that's why I'm happy to say the majority of my clients that work with me go on and do well. And when they don't, they phone me back up and have another session and clear whatever. But it's like getting that integration working, getting that universal love force deep within you, in your cells, in your awareness, so that you can, I always say, it's only a breath away. Breathe in, let yourself fall down into the deeper part of your body, feel the love that you've created and built up, and it's there. And that's what I do. Because I can be up here thinking, and I'll go, oh, let me go down. Let me feel the love. Remind that all the world's all in its right place. Well, that's my talk for today. Thank you again. I thank you for the subscriptions. Got some new ones lately, and I'm very happy about that. And thank you for your comments. And thank you for listening and being here. And I trust you'll have a very, very, very good week. And I'll be back again on Sunday with my Sunday thought. Bye now.